Good evening, everybody. We're back. I'm Dan Winter, as you know, originally theimploder.com, now fractalwater.com. And Jason Matozzo and I are here tonight to introduce you to the newest upgraded product line of the Imploder from fractalwater.com. Hi, Jason.
Hey, how you doing, Dan? So this is a very exciting time for us because this is now kind of like the reintroduction of the imploder or fractal water. We worked very, very hard for the past few years, coming out with a new super imploder, and most importantly, it's this new vortex nozzle, right? So that one is much, much upgraded from what we had previously. Yeah, and Dan still has one still in the plastic wrap,
And
right? I'm not sure if
versus
you
the
can
original. Here's the original.
versus the original. Yep. The
And
original was
here's
fantastic.
the original cone. So the new one is so fabulous, and Jason's put a half a lifetime on this, but because it does higher pressure and higher volume, and
Yep.
it's much more professional and much stronger, and so can be used in professional apps.
Yeah, so let's get down to it here. So now Fractal Water and the Imploder, which is Dan Winter, we are now merged together. Now we are kind of like an actual real entity now. Dan is now part of Fractal Water. About 2 years ago, we had a an investor come in, Dave Elliott, and he saw the potential in the Imploder and other Fractal Water products, and he said, let's do this right and let's get this manufactured correctly. So what Dave has is manufacturing capabilities, and he also has the warehousing capabilities. So now today you order an imploder, it's shipped within 24 hours out of the warehouse right to your door, a lot quicker and simpler than it was in the past. So that is very good. And again, like we said about manufacturing capabilities, I mean, if we look at if Dan could show maybe his version one over there,
Yeah.
that's not really version one, it's kind of like version two. But his version two over there, version one, now that had to be bolted together at a certain period of time, right?
Right.
With an O-ring in the center. Now this one is now plastic welded together. So this is like new technology that we have that we were able to utilize in order to get this thing plastic welded together up to 300 psi. In the past, we had an issue with putting the regular super imploder in a home. Now, this one, you have no problem. You can put this right in your home along with the magnetic array to make the super imploder. Now, as you see here, our new upgraded magnetic array, it's still steel on the outside, 10 gauge steel wrapped magnets on the outside. But if you look at the center and the plastic is made of the same super strong Technil plastic as we have here. So that Technil plastic and we're using the glass plastic polymer version of that. It's rated for drinking water safe for every sanctioning body in the entire world. So that's one, and it does not leach. Kind of like your PVC will leach chlorine into the water, right? Where the Technol does not. So we're using a very super safe, environmentally friendly plastic for this. It's a brand new plastic. It's a drinking water safe, food grade safe. So anything that your water touches for you to drink, for you to use on your plants, for your animals, is going to be 100% safe for them. So all right, so let's go. So Dan, go ahead.
Well, so people understand that we were getting amazing results from the original Imploder series, and we're going to go through the science of how that works molecularly in a little bit. But first, Jason is going to review the new product line. The point is that we had such amazing results continuously. However, we kept having problems when people got to over 60 to 90 psi pressure, et cetera, and certain professional environments. We needed something far stronger, and also we needed a whole series of products of various sizes. And you can see we're gradually going to be increasing the size option. And the new blue nozzle, by the way, is fully 3/4 inch and handles higher volume and higher pressure anyway. But now with our new support in industrial partners, we can go professionally across the full range of size spectra and pressure needs. So this gives us an opportunity to go really full scale and compete with the big boys. But the point was that we had the best design, even originally, because we
Yep.
actually have the pure physics of the optimized charge collapse implosion. And that's a science we're going to be reviewing more toward the end of this video. But first, Jason is going to do more of a review of what the new product line is.
Exactly. So as Dan stated, everything inside that nozzle, and even on the outside a little bit, if you see the outer portion, is the same as the original Super Imploder. The only difference is that we scaled it up to true 3/4 inch. We molded in the threads, and now this is plastic welded together, and the sidewall is a lot thicker, right? So all the magic from the Super Imploder and how that worked. The same thing with the magnetic array for the superimploder, which makes a superimploder. A superimploder is a nozzle, a vortex nozzle, and a magnetic array, which makes a superimploder. So everything that we've tested in the past with it, all the results we have, it's just replicated in a newer, sleeker design that could handle a lot higher pressure. So let's go into our product line that we have here with fractal water. We're going to go through the various versions of what we have here. You're
So
going to see Dan for a second until
If
we
you
get that. Here we go.
if you think of the people on the islands, for example, off of Spain, they had horrible hard water, and when they started using the super imploder, it was off the charts. People with hard water have off the charts kind of results, both for growth benefit and taste benefit and drinking benefit and bathing benefit, hydration benefits. It's off the charts. And now you have a product that can handle the tough professional environment and the high pressures.
Exactly. Yep. So now we have something that you could put in your home and forget about it, not have to worry about it leaking, etc. It's there. It's commercial grade now. So for all of our products, as you see here, we have our the vortex nozzle, right? And then you have the super imploder, which is the magnetic array plus the vortex nozzle that gives you a super imploder. Right. Our third one, which is just a little too heavy to bring with me right now with us, but we'll show you on the website. It
The
is our
ultra,
ultra imploder.
the
So
ultra
the
imploder,
ultra, yeah. So
solid,
what we
solid stainless. It's amazing.
it is stain. It's 3/16 stainless. So that's one of the highest grades of stainless steel you could get. And so what sets it apart is that we have our 3/4 inch super imploder. Now this is our plastic version. You know, obviously it's not, it's cheaper because it's made of plastic one, but it does the same thing. But it's 3/4 inch. Now you're going to say to yourself, why do I need a 1 inch stainless steel version? So the stainless steel is going to be for people who need, um, who are making higher volume projects or need a higher volume process, right? So if they're making chemicals, if they're mixing chemicals, that sort of thing, and it's just a lot stronger, right? So you're going to put this into your home, you're going to put this into your business and just literally forget about it because it will never break, right? So why do we make a stainless steel version? And Dan Winter always talks about steel buildings being death, right? So we hear this a lot. So the steel is going to create the vortex effect and it's going to magnetize that water, right, without any outside interference messing with it, right? So steel is good for that. So we're not trying to, in this case, we're not trying to have the outside magnetic aura of the land influence our water. We're influencing it ourselves within the ultra imploder device. So Dan could speak a little bit about that, of how that stainless steel doesn't affect, it's not death like as if it were a building, a stainless steel building.
Well, the thing is, first of all, if you have like a greenhouse where you need obviously more water than will pass through a 3/4 inch pipe and very high pressure, you need something that's virtually indestructible. That solid stainless is very, and actually the Ultra Imploder has been out for some years and people
Yes.
love them. Actually, in Ohio, the Amish farmers, where they had very high hard water, eventually every single farmer who tested one immediately wanted one just after they tasted it. It's wonderful. But what Jason is saying is that um, remember, we're building charge inside the device. So we don't have to worry about gaining charge through a high dielectric shell here. So in the higher pressure and bigger commercial applications, a seal frame here is quite useful. And the other thing is this then lays the foundation for what's going to be a larger series of commercial products later being what, 1.5 and 2 inch, Jason, is that right?
Yeah, so we're gonna get in. So the reason why we started off with the Ultra Imploder here, which has been available for about 4 years now, is to showcase that we have the Ultra series. Now, anytime you hear Ultra, you're gonna talk about steel, right? And we're gonna have a multitude of different sizes of the Ultra Imploder, which is gonna go from the 1 inch that you see here all the way up to 4 inches. So you're talking about a massive amount of water that could be treated with the fractal water process, right? And that's with our Ultra series. And now again, we're gonna go to
Just remember,
um,
as you think about this, when you have big sewage treatment or water processing plants, the increased spin density and charge density has a dramatic effect on the ability to treat water, especially increased sedimentation rates. You literally spin out the pollutants, et cetera. And we've actually measured the effect on spinning out chlorine, for example. So in really big water treatment applications, obviously, eventually, at a commercial level, you're going to need big devices to deliver this spin power at a bigger scale.
yes, and that's what the Ultra Imploder delivers, right? It's made of stainless steel. It's super tough. It's made for those, treating water in very tough environments like sewage treatment plants, etc., cooling towers, anywhere where you need a little bit more strength than your average plastics that are out there. So again, you're going to talk about Ultras, your ultra high end stainless steel version of the Imploder series. And then we get to the brand new, again, like we were talking about before, the brand new Super Imploder, which is our plastic series of the Implosion series for vortex magnetic systems. So that's, and again, we're fractal water vortex magnetic systems. So we have both magnetic and vortex systems. So the super line is going to be the entire line of the Technil plastic, and we're going to be making those from a 1/2 inch all the way up to 4 inches, right? So you put a 4 inch in probably your greenhouse, and you'll put and then you'll have up to 1/2 inch up to your water line that comes out of your sink, right? So we're going to have that entire line coming out. So right now we have, to recap, we have that 1 inch Ultra Imploder, we have the 3/4 inch Super Imploder available now. And you can also purchase the standalone Imploder nozzle, which is just the vortex. So vortex magnetic systems, if you just wanted the magnetics, you could get that. If you just want the vortex, you could get that as well. And we're not going to show you a picture of it, but it looks similar to just this. It's our new product. It's called the Recharger, and it's just going to be a 2 magnet version of the 8 magnet Imploder magnetic array. So why would you need a recharger? So let's say you had a greenhouse or let's say a chicken coop. You're going to run that 1 inch line or 3/4 inch line out to your chicken coop. Then you'll probably have maybe an imploder nozzle that goes right before you're watering your chickens and a recharger right after that. So then now you're recharging that super imploded water that's from the head of the system up to the delivery points of where you want your water to be. So you could basically think of it as you can make your very own mini super imploder with the little rechargers. That will be out in another month and a half. So look for the email on that one.
Remember, the concept of the recharging here is related to what the superimploder does. We have selected the magnetic flux densities to be opposing and maximally centripetal. And that's the actual science we're going to get into next here in terms of the science of how this works. But just on a practical level, people love to have the imploder and a vortex nozzle. The nozzle alone people love it for their showers because they feel the spin density, they feel the softness, they feel the silkiness of liquid water. Everybody who ever tried an imploder shower, I think every single person loved it, actually. But the idea is that supposing you have a house in which you have, say, two people taking a shower at one time. So it turns out now that the new super imploder with full 3/4 inch, you could probably actually have two people taking a shower at once and do quite well with the full 3/4 inch capability, whereas the old nozzle was more the equivalent to 1/2 inch. But the point is now you can make size choices. But for most full house applications, probably the super imploder will work quite fine. And now that it's
Yes.
fully rated, safe and stable even at high pressures, no dangers, leaks, etc. That's a beautiful solution for probably 90% of the homes in the world is a super imploder for that silky effect in the shower. Plus, as we're about to discuss, probably a majority of human health issues are directly or indirectly related to what's called hydration. Now, hydration is a very specific meaning. It literally means wetting power or solubility, and that's precisely the physics we're about to get into. So, for example, back problems and hair turning. Actually, gray. Now, my hair is gray. You might not say, but actually, they say that the solubility of the water has a great effect on your hair color and things like that. But certainly, the donuts in your back. The hydration is a big part of back problems. It's an amazing thing. And so if you just ask any doctor about hydration being the center of so many disease issues. So to get more hydration, you use spin density, which is solubility effect, which is the physics we're about to discuss here. And the thing that's cool is the same hydration and solubility that's a solution to humans is also exactly what your plants need, sometimes called bioavailability or solubility. So that's a chemistry we're going to talk about right now with some graphics. But so Jason, are we finished now with describing the product line and the new, have we reviewed also availability?
Yeah, so everything that we discussed is available now. The Super Imploder, the Ultra Imploder, and the nozzle is available to ship now within 24 hours of placing your order.
And most of the shipments happen from New England, USA. Is that correct?
Yep, all the shipments go out of Connecticut.
And there, and the imploder.com goes right to fractalwater.com now. And
Yep,
very convenient. People have been working with us, can work directly with Jason. And both Jason and I are both available at your service for questions and service and support. So that's the benefit here.
exactly. Yeah, so one more thing to touch on. We had a study done in Australia. I think it was one of your friends, Dan, and they noticed that if you run the water through the imploder one time, you got a good growth effect. But if you go through two or three times, you get a better growth effect. So that's another reason why we came out with the recharger. For those who can't cycle the water through three or four or five times, right? You could put a recharger down the line so that water is now hitting another magnetic array further down the line to get that better growth effect in your system, right?
Yes.
And you could also do that in your home. You could put a recharger, right? Magnet only recharger on the hot water line out of your shower,
Mhm.
out of your hot water heater.
And by the way, it may be off topic here, but the exact same kind of device is famous for dramatic fuel efficiency solution in diesel engines. But that's
Yes. Yeah, we've also tested the imploder on diesel fuel efficiency, and we got good results then. That was a long time ago, actually. That
there's
was
something
a
like
very
12%. But it
yeah.
gets back to our physics here, which is why
Yes,
is it that centripetal force is not just the bioavailability and spin density solubility solution, but it's also the growth solution. And that's what we're going to get into, that basically the physics of what causes a seed to germinate, obviously, is its ability to suck in its next nutrient. And it turns that literally that we call life force is actually the physics of that implosive suction. So, for example, the longitudinal wave of the sun, if you convey the longitudinal magnetic of the sun on a copper plate into a pitch black basement, if the longitudinal wave of the sun is making it into your pitch black basement, the plants will grow fine. It's the longitudinal wave that makes them grow. The reason is it's the longitudinal or centripetal component which actually is the essence of and triggers life force. In other words, implosion makes life. Now, to get that centripetal force into the water, this is related to what Jason's talking about, the recharger and the super imploder. If you knew, and this leads up to the next section on the physics of how this works, which is where we want to go now, if you knew which end of your magnet was more centripetal, you might have a clue. And I want to tell one famous little story. There's about 3 or 4 books on using magnets for healing, for example. It's an old story. Most of you heard the story, but it's very illustrative. If you have a toothache and you put the south pole of the magnet on the toothache, it will make the pain worse because it's centripetal. However, the rate of healing will probably go up. Whereas if you put the north pole of the same magnet on the same toothache, the pain will be noticeably less. This gets into the fact that pain is a name for charge that bleeds due to broken fractality. In other words, compression is loss. So obviously, restore compression, it reorganizes, which is the basis of all of our bioactive, regenerative, plasma tech, phi-ray.com, et cetera. The point is, the reason the toothache the healing rate increased with the centripetal side of the magnet, or the pain decreased with the centrifugal side of the magnet. And there's lots of literature on this. It's fun to read about. The point is, there's a clue in there that what we conventionally call the south pole of that magnet is more centripetal than the north pole. There's many problems here. First of all, one problem is whether you use the term yin or yang or centripetal or centrifugal. Another problem here is that, as Jason and I found out, the Chinese obviously make most of the magnets, and they label the plus and minus poles of that magnet the opposite of the way they do in the West. So prepare to be confused. But the point we want to make here is that if you knew how to focus the two more centripetal sides of that magnet toward the water, called implosion, or actually phase conjugate magnetics. We've got a lot of papers on this. But the point is, it is that centripetal force when that's carried into the inertia of the water. And remember, the water with hydrogen at its center, which we've proved is a phase conjugate structure. It's all based on golden ratio. So the hydrogen is a perfect antenna for the longitudinal compressional component, and hence you can store that implosive inertia, the magnetic centripetal force in the water, and it has a dramatic effect on growth and bioavailability. So that's a little background that when you begin to think about how do you make the water centripetal, remember, implosion is all about restored centripetal forces, right? Which life force is centripetal, consciousness is centripetal, gravity is centripetal, electronegativity is centripetal. Yet it appears in our current physics, there's not a scientist on the planet that appears to know the cause of anything centripetal. Oops. That's why we have fractalgut.com, which is the world's leading grand unified field theory, as testified by the lead artificial intelligence on the planet. Grok 4 is the best physics. And so here is fractalgut.com, and here is the section there on origin of negentropy, or self-organization, that the centripetal force creates negentropy. And you can read all about this at fractalgut.com. Just the point is that we have now the world's leading physics for teaching how negentropy arises when compression is fractal, as in fractalwater.com. It's really quite easy to visualize. If the petals of your rose are arranged like a fractal, then that specific kind of compression, which is called non-destructive compression or implosive or fractal, will convert, obviously, transverse into longitudinal as it implodes down that vortex. And fractal compression becomes self-organizing because at the center of that implosion, and we have graphics about this. Let's get some of those graphics up here. At the center of that implosion, so here is my original design. This is about actually almost 40 years ago now, Jason, when I first dreamed of what should become the imploder 40 years later. These are my drawings, okay? I had learned how to put 5 and 10 golden spirals onto the precise cone of what is the infinite nest of dodecahedron called the Star Mother, right? And so I got dodecaecosa, infinite 3D nest called the Star Mother kit, goldenmean.info/kit, the only possible three-dimensional fractal, which we then later proved by equation is the way hydrogen is built, the basis of fractalgut.com. The point is, I kind of lucid dreamed this like 30 years ago when I knew that if you got the right implosion cone, you could get maximum centripetal force. That is, you could convert compression into acceleration towards center. And that physics is right here, as you've heard me probably say 100 times. But because of golden ratio, the waves can add and multiply recursively, constructively, the only solution to real constructive compression. That's what we proved at Fractal GUT. And when the waves add and multiply recursively, constructively, not just wavelength, but phase velocity, then the heterodynes of phase velocity produce acceleration of charge towards center, Exactly. Thank you, Jason. Which is named charge collapse. And if you ask any physicist the cause of gravity and the cause of consciousness, most all of them will agree it's fractal charge collapse. They just don't happen to know the geometry that makes charge collapse and what causes charge collapse, which is fractality. So the point is that down that vortex cone, at the throat of that vortex, where they converge non-destructively, here, this is an example. If this vortex, as in the Steiner work, if the vortex is piezo, and that's also why imploders work even better if the water's a bit hard, because that makes it a bit piezo. So now that this vortex is piezo, there will be a voltage difference between the narrowest and the widest part of that vortex. And the reason there is that voltage difference is because I'm going to stop my share now and see if I can explain this. The reason there's a voltage difference between the tip of the nozzle and the broad part of the nozzle, which is called charge collapse or implosion, is because that vortex solved the problem that stumped Einstein, which is he knew the solution to the unified field, and the solution to the cause of gravity, everything, was the fact that you needed infinite non-destructive compression. He said so. His problem was he could not visualize where does the charge go when it gets to the center. If there's no place for the charge to go when it gets to center, in other words, then obviously the compression is not going to be non-destructive. So what we now have learned is that the nozzle at that vortex, the dimension of the tip of that nozzle is called Planck. It's the universal musical key signature of every wave in physics, Planck length and Planck time. If you multiply Planck times powers of golden ratio, you get something like 200 physical variables. That's what PlanckFire.com and FractalGUT.com is about. That if you tune Planck to golden ratio, and that's what we did with the imploder, and that's what we do with all our helium technologies, what happens is at the Planck threshold, when the compression by golden ratio is implosive, right there, the transverse electromagnetic inertia, which is the up and down transverse electromagnetic, at the Planck threshold, the electromagnetic inertia is converted down the throat of the vortex, as it were, is converted from transverse to longitudinal EMF. So the transverse wave is going like this electromagnetically, which is all our radio communication, whereas the longitudinal or compressional wave is traveling, the oscillation is traveling parallel to the direction of propagation, called longitudinal or scalar or compressional. The point is, and for example, all gravity waves are compressional, as Bearden, longitudinal, as Bearden proved. So because at the Planck threshold, there's a way for the charge to leave, which is implode into the longitudinal array, which is the gravity grid and the sacred grid and the Dodecahedral course Earth grid. So the longitudinal array is, for example, where telepathy happens and where action at a distance happens, where embedding happens, where physics calls it they call it entanglement, but the better word actually is phase conjugate embedding. The point is that that longitudinal array is the charge distribution array that creates life. That's why it's the physics of telepathy and all action at a distance. So the longitudinal array is everything. And when you implode a charge vortex and there's a way out for charge at the center, the distribution into the longitudinal array is the stuff of life force, DNA radio, where you go when you dream. You made the Eller phase shift to your longitudinal. It's literally heaven. Point is that by imploding correctly, you connect to that array, and with that way out for charge at center, you have created inertia going toward center. That's what implosion is. Implosion is the fact that charge has found a way out non-destructively at the throat, center, nozzle, tip of that vortex. And that's what makes it charge collapse. And that charge collapse is the engine. Charge collapse is the cause of gravity. It's the cause of life force. It's the cause of seed germination. It's the cause of all action at a distance. It's the cause of lucid dreaming. It's why you need grounding, all these cool things. So once you begin to understand perfected charge collapse happening right there, and that's why we want to say here, and obviously I carry on too long, but there's versions of this imploder nozzle now that we will be developing, we actually are developing, which take this to a next step, a next level. And let me explain. Jason knows about this a little bit. This is from our biodynamics people. So what we knew was that, for example, Laurent, our wonderful biodynamic scientist, he would take inside the inner cone of the inner nozzle, and supposing there was a farmer that was spending way too much money on phosphorus, magnesium, whatever was missing on the farm, and he's paying an arm and a leg for the fertilizer. Well, this is a crude and simplistic example, but it's real. If, as any biodynamic scientist knows, if you put uh, a trace of that, the capacitance of the missing mineral in the inner center of the inner vortex cone, right where it will be conditioned at the nozzle of the imploder, which is the essence of what is called biodynamic dynamization. The point is that if you then treat the water with the capacitive field of the missing mineral or whatever was missing for the land, you can treat the water, and now the farmer doesn't need to buy fertilizer anymore. He might need a bulletproof car from Big Pharma, but oh well. But the thing is, the physics here is that now both Laurent in his work with the biodynamic people, who's wonderful, and you're going to be hearing more about this, but in our group also with our central magnetic coil of PhiRay.com, you take this new nozzle, and Laurent is already doing it. He's using the actual new one that Jason just shipped, and you place a coil right here, and you put the right frequency signatures in that coil. I tell you, we are going to have so much fun. I mean, water purification, water treatment. Actually, Laurent was there in Thailand, and he proved that he could eliminate the need for vaccines and antibiotics in most animal farming. He proved he could eliminate the need for chemicals in shrimp farming. Amazing. And it was all by putting charge into the water. So now
Yep, and
we're
that's
taking
exactly what we do with the SuperImploder. As
exactly. We
Dan
had
was saying, right here,
yep.
pretty much right there is where you could kind of see it. I'm not sure if you could see it on the camera there. You'll see that cone, that
Tip of the
vortex
inner
cone
cone.
right at
Yep.
the end there.
Yep.
That's the precise moment that that vortex is being created as
Right.
it's exiting the nozzle, and then it hits your magnetic array,
That's right.
giving you that charge, right? And then locking in that structure that's created here.
Right.
And that's
And
how
there's
that works.
yes, and it's good that you bring that up because that allows us to explain a little bit more about the physics. So the
Mhm.
physics is that especially if that water was piezo, meaning now the water spinning has some charge in it, and so at the throat of that nozzle where spin density is maximum, you have a capacitor that's rotating, entering just like a, a, a permanent magnet motor. So the rotating water ion enters the pair of supermagnetics, and there's not just a shredding action, but a centripetal action, which supercharges that water molecule because it's now you've got a charged ion pair entering superflux dense magnetics, just like a permanent magnet motor. And the result is, among other things, a shredding action, meaning dramatically smaller molecular cluster size, which Jason has done some measurements also, meaning dramatically increased hydration, solubility, bioavailability, obviously. The molecules are not only smaller and spinning faster, which means they're more bioavailable. And that does lead us to the next point related to what we were just saying that so if at the throat of that tip that Jason pointed to, you have a coil, and we're designing amazing drive circuits to drive these magnetic coils, you'll see more at PhiRay.com. There's a Schumann magnetic coil there. You point that at the water, which is the most powerful Schumann magnetic field ever existed, and the effect on the water taste off the charts. Well, you put it on your imploder, and then you can modify those frequency signatures for treating water for anything you want. And so this is going to be a very soon emerging business that's a companion to our fractal water products, which is the magnetic coils that fit these devices for incredible results in water treatment. So obviously we're excited.
Yeah.
So, Jason, what else should we be talking about here? Have we told our story?
Yeah, I think we got the story, as you say, of fractal water there, where we have our magnetic vortex magnetic products that you could purchase right now and plug it right into your water and get that great tasting water with over 40 years of engineering that went into this, especially with Dan. So Dan, can you tell us just before we go, the last thing that the physics and the geometry of this nozzle, right? So we're using your these are your equations, correct?
Right. But
Right?
specifically, yeah, when
And Planck
yeah.
times Planck length times Planck time. Now what is it about, timesing golden ratio times Planck length and Planck time that gives us all that magic?
You know, when the Templars said that the Earth was needed to restore the fractality in time, they called it the broken timelines. We now know that time is only a name for the experience of relative spin rate. For example, the reason your watch speeds up when you accelerate toward the speed of light is a portion of the inertia of acceleration is converted by translation of vorticity into increased spin rate. So it is simply the increased spin rate in your watch as you accelerate toward the speed of light, which you call speeding up time. So it's the experience of spin rate. The point is that spin rates all have to be in phase with that fractal cascade by golden ratio tuned to Planck. For example, the only exact two frequencies, colors of light that cause photosynthesis are perfectly golden ratio multiples times Planck time. Fractality phase conjugation is absolutely the cause of photosynthesis. There is no question. Fractalfield.com/fractal photosynthesis. You can see all the graphics. Point being that fractality in time, which is the nest of spin rates, again, Planck length and Planck time times integer powers of golden ratio called fractality in time. Originally PlanckFire.com, Planckphire, Planckfire.com, which is now fractalgut.com, the world's top grand unified field theory, is simply saying that all negentropy, all charge collapse to work has to be tuned to fractality, which is golden ratio fractality perfected, times Planck, the universal musical key signature of the universe. For example, here's a practical example. We've been to many pyramids now. Our friend Sam, the Bosnian pyramids, he has 1 million people coming there every year, and most of them get some form of regeneration. They're getting rejuvenation. It's working. And of course, we'd like to know why. Well, then we measure the frequencies. It turns out you take the Schumann cascade, which the theoretical Planck times golden ratio would land you on 50. But because the actual Schumann of this planet, the theoretical should be 7.29 hertz, but the actual is 7.83 hertz. If you take the 7.83 in that cascade times powers of golden ratio, you land at, instead of at 50, you land at 53 hertz, which we have measured in every single sacred building. My God. And then he got up to the roof, Sam, and he got 28 kilohertz. Turns out all the frequencies in that building are precise golden ratio times Planck and retuned precisely to Schumann. So the Schumann phase conjugate pump wave imploding is the reason and the physics that pyramid makes global wireless power, because it's imploding the phase conjugate pump wave of Schumann, spitting out coherent longitudinal directionally, called global wireless power. And we think, unfortunately, that Tesla, his intentions were wonderful, but he actually got the frequencies wrong and the nodal locations wrong. For example, picking 60 hertz was just plain dumb. Long story. But anyway, the point is that what Jason is saying is that by tuning the size and the scale, and actually indirectly, therefore, the frequencies of that nozzle, precisely to Planck and golden ratio. Remember, this particular golden spiral on that 60-degree cone, which is this exact 60-degree cone linking the inner dodeca to the outer dodeca, is literally a 60-degree cone, a pent within a pent. Repent and be saved. That 60-degree cone, we now have absolute proof, is the reason and the way hydrogen is built. Golden ratio is all over the hydrogen atom. It's amazing. So if we built that vortex to be exactly how hydrogen is structured, what does that do for us? It means we're in phase with the charge collapse at the center of hydrogen, which means we can be maximally negentropic, because the negentropy happens because the more you get inertia towards center, that charge collapse going through the implosive center means that only the waves that are in phase with, that the harmonics fit the nest, only the waves that are in phase with can survive that compression, which is to say, the perfect sorting process. And that implosive sorting is called the origin of negentropy. You read about it at fractalgut.com. So that negentropy, that self-organization happens by optimizing charge collapse, and that happened because of Planck's times golden ratio in the perfect vortex.
And that's it. With fractal water, you're getting the
All of that.
perfect vortex. You're really not getting no other vortex on the planet is going to do what fractal water does, just because of everything that Dan Winter laid out right now.
Perfect vortex.
So, in closing, we want to give all the people watching through Dan Winter's YouTube, Facebook, all the other channels that Dan Winter has going on right now. We want to offer 10% off with coupon code Fractal Launch. That's LAUNCH,
Cool. Cool.
right? That's Fractal Launch. You get 10% off. And we're going to go further than that. So anyone who's ever purchased a Super Imploder in the past, we're giving you 50% off the new Super Imploder, right?
Really?
So
Wow.
contact Dan Winter or myself. Um, and we'll look up your receipt, we'll look up your order in the past, and we'll give you 50% off the new Super Imploder,
That's
right?
amazing.
So
Wonderful. So
we want
yeah,
to do that for all of our past customers.
all of our old friends with super imploders, that's a 50%. That's cool, Jason. Wonderful.
Yep,
Yeah. So the point is our old friends are important to us because you have the experience of the results with fertility with
yes,
like up to 50%. Actually, it was 60% increase by measurement in the weight of the hemp marijuana crop. That was
yeah.
amazing. You can read about it at fractalfield.com/imploder magnetic research. We had dozens of studies like that. It's just amazing. So the point is that all these original super imploder customers, they know. And yeah, so Jason, I think well, I want to thank Jason here. You know, yes, I did a lot of homework academically, but Jason actually took the bull by the horns, so to speak, and found the commercial partners and lined up commercial production and got a design for a much more commercially sustainable product line. And Jason has really stuck his neck out to make this happen. He's worked diligently and powerfully, and it obviously deserves to be thanked and rewarded. So this is a teamwork made in heaven here. So thank you, Jason. We're cooking.
You're welcome. And thanks to everyone watching. And hopefully you pick up yourself a fractal water product for yourself to use in your home, to use personally, to use in your garden, to use for your animals. And, since it's for treating water, right? It's for literally anything. Anything you could dream of, we make water better for that application. So that's why you should check us out.
It tastes better. It's silky in the shower. Plants grow amazing. So many diseases need more hydration. It's the solution of people and plants and life force in general. It's a powerful, useful tool. So thank you very much, everybody. Thank you, Jason. We had fun. We
You're
look forward
welcome.
to being in touch with all of you.
Thanks, everyone.
See you soon. Fractalwater.com. Blessings, blessings.
Bye.
Bye.